From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 2 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk. The McLaughlin Group is brought to you by Pharma, new medicines, new hope. And by CIT, financing for businesses large and small. On the web at CIT.com.
Issue 1, starting gate.
The general session of the Democratic National Committee will please come to order.
The Democratic Party held its winter meeting in Washington this week, with Chairman Howard Dean presiding. The session featured the likely 2008 Democratic presidential nomination contenders, all 10 of them. Of the 10, 5 are realistic candidates, say Democratic activists and media who attended, led by Senator Hillary Clinton, front runner.
I have to tell you, I am not running for president to put Band-Aids on our problems.
Senator Barack Obama, front runner.
This is not a game. It's not a contest for the TV cameras. This is a serious moment for America.
John Edwards, former senator and former vice presidential nominee.
We're here because today, somewhere in America, an 8-year-old little girl will go to bed hungry.
Bill Richardson, governor of New Mexico.
And we're a party built on a platform of ideas and ideals. We share a fundamental belief in the notion that equality is not achieved by knocking someone else out of the way and kicking them when they're down.
Tom Vilsack, former governor, Iowa.
We are at our best as Democrats when we stand up and are inspired by those values that move us and never stand down to those who wish to scare us.
The starting gate is open, the race is on, and the first finish line is 11 months away with the onset of the primaries and caucuses of presidential election 08. Other candidates who appeared at that winter meeting are Joe Biden, Chris Dodd, Wes Clark, Dennis Kucinich, and Mike Gravel. Question, who were the showstoppers at the DNC winter meeting, Pat Buchanan?
Well, the showstoppers were Richardson and Edwards, who gave the best speeches. However, John, this is a three-way race. Hillary Rodham Clinton had a very good January. She's got a double-digit lead now in both Iowa and New Hampshire. She's going to have more money than anyone. She's going to have deeper and stronger support. And then she's going to have an opponent, a non-Hillary candidate. Right now, Obama is the hot ticket, but I think Obama's going to fade. I think he gave sort of a lecture there to the RNC. I think the guy to look at is Edwards for this reason. He's come out of the gate very strongly. He was leading at one point in Iowa. He's very well positioned to take over as a non-Hillary candidate and to go the distance against her. I think it's now a three-way race. If you had to put your money anywhere, I'd put it on Hillary, but this is not going to be a cakewalk or a promenade to the nomination.
Neither Hillary nor Obama scored high. Why is that, Eleanor?
Well, they are burdened by the offices they hold and by the Senate's sort of indecision about what to do about the war. And a lot of anti-war activists were at that meeting, and they like the candidates who basically are clear in their opposition, who are calling
Well, Obama is.
Yeah, but they like the candidates who are calling for the cutoff of funding, and Senator Obama and Senator Clinton have stopped short of that. I agree that Edwards is right now positioned to sort of sneak in there and possibly be the one who gains some momentum because he is positioned well in the early contest. He's also courting labor very aggressively, but Hillary Clinton has such a political machine that people are going to think long and hard before they cross her, because right now it looks like she could possibly run away with this thing.
If Obama is the hare, Richardson may be the tortoise because his credentials are great, greater than Obama's, and he keeps plodding along. You agree with that?
Yes, his foreign policy credentials are better than any other than Biden, anyone else in the Democratic field. He was ambassador to the UN. He was Secretary of Energy. He knows nuclear weapon technology. He's been involved in a lot of international relations and transactions. I think he's more likely to be a vice presidential nominee. But let me go back to what I think is the big story coming out of the first month of the primary for the Democrats, and that is that Hillary, who I completely agree it's hers to lose this nomination, it seems to be abandoning her centrist position on the war because she's being pulled to the left by the cheering anti-war activist base at such events like this winter meeting. She ought to slam on the brakes, stick with her position, and sustain her viability for the general election. I think she's lost confidence in her own candidacy.
Hillary is no shoo-in, right?
Well, I think if there ever is the phrase shoe-in for a nomination, I'd say I'd apply it to Hillary. I think she's by far and away the strongest candidate, and she is supported by the best political strategist in the Democratic Party called Bill Clinton. And then they have a nationwide group of supporters and activists.
She's on the wrong side of the. She was on the wrong side of the war.
I don't think she was on the wrong side of the war for.
She didn't score very well.
Well, that's a different thing. I don't think she's a natural speaker at this point. Okay, there's nothing.
Yeah, what is that about her?
I don't know. Well, you know, she's very careful about the way she speaks. I mean, I remember in New York State before the election, she was like an automaton. She didn't really have the kind of spontaneous or authentic voice, but she's, I think, gained it.
Don't you think?
And I think she's much better at it now.
Does she suffer from the dynasty, the anti-dynasty syndrome? We have now with Bush, we have 12 years of the Bushes. We've already had 8 years of the Clinton. Now we have another Clinton. Isn't the country turning anti-dynasty?
There's no evidence.
It's not showing up. It's not showing up. In fact, it's not showing up in the polls. In fact, you have Clinton nostalgia.
Okay, we got a much larger question here. Who's the Democrat kingmaker?
6 years, $3 trillion in new debt. And the one thing you can say about George Bush and this economy is we'll be forever in your debt.
The Democrats' victory in the midterm elections is largely due to a representative from Illinois, Rahm Emanuel. He engineered the strategy for the takeover, and then he implemented the strategy. He handpicked the candidates, invoking the Bill Clinton strategy, not Howard Dean's, namely cling to the center. Eschew extremes. Emanuel is now the new chairman of the powerful House Democratic Caucus, and he appears to be the party kingmaker. Question, so who is calling the shots in the Democratic Party right now? Is it Rahm Emanuel or is it Howard Dean? I ask you, Tony.
Well, look, Rahm Emanuel did design the campaign. He did a splendid job of last year's congressional campaign.
Doesn't that give him status?
But there is no kingmaker in the Democratic Party, as there isn't in the Republican Party right now. If there is a kingmaker, it's the activist base collectively that might be the kingmaker. And his position on Iraq, which is to keep the Democratic Party's fingerprints off, is not sustainable.
It's basically a free-for-all. You've got all these campaigns out there, and Rahm Emanuel himself is torn between supporting Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, who's from his home state. He's been telling reporters he's hiding under the desk because he can't bear to make the decision.
Okay, Democrat troika. The Democrats are split in at least 3 ways. First, the veteran liberals, like House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Charlie Rangel, chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. Second, the pro-technology and free trade moderates of the new Democratic Coalition, a.k.a. the DLC, the Democratic Leadership Council. The NDC has some 65 members like Jim Moran of Virginia and John Sprott of South Carolina. Third, the Blue Dogs, a fiscally conservative bloc now boasting 44 members in the House, like Dennis Cardozo of California and John Tanner of Tennessee. Question, which path is most likely to carry the Democrats across the White House threshold? The moderate path of democratic centrism or the radical path of traditional liberalism? I ask you, Mort.
Well, I think it's the moderate path that gives them the best chance to win the White House. If they get too far to the left, there's no way, in my judgment, that they're going to have an easy shot at the White House. If they stay in the center and the war in Iraq is still the main issue, I think they'll have a very good chance.
You believe that more moderates? Oh.
Here's the thing, John. Getting across the finish line in the general election, the moderate center is exactly the place to be. That's why Hillary is trying to resist this tug to the left. But you are mistaken, John. The heart of the Democratic Party, the heart and soul of that party is now militantly anti-war. It's probably pro-cutting off funds or getting there. And it is not pro-free trade. It is economic nationalism. Webb represents that. The guys in Ohio, something like 39 of 43 of the new guys coming in are anti-free trade. Bush is going to lose fast track. Economic nationalism is the coming thing in the Democratic Party.
Even the so-called centrists, the DLC, have recognized the shortcomings of globalization and the fact that people have been hurt. And John Edwards does have the clearest populist message, and it does resonate with the voters. And if you want to call that liberal, you can call it liberal. They've got to excite the Democratic base, and that's why it's great to have Barack Obama in the race. For whatever happens to him, he's got a lot of people thrilled about his candidacy, especially young people.
What has moderation delivered in the last several years, except a series of horrors?
The Clinton presidency was a centrist path. Look, the problem with your analysis, and I don't completely disagree with it, is that Republicans lost the independent moderates in this last election, and by a very dramatic margin. Normally they break even with it. So if the Democratic Party goes to the left, yes, their base will be agitated, but they give the Republicans a chance to get the moderate independents back. So I agree with Maud.
There's going to be another major issue, which I don't think is globalization. It is the income disparity between the people who have really done very well and the middle class, which feels squeezed by a lot of things, including health care.
The only way you can go at them is tax hikes. And tax hikes are still poison.
The President, the Treasury Secretary, Alan Greenspan, they're all talking about the income inequality, and that's an issue that's made for the Democrats.
I want to correct the impression that's going on here, because we have a totally new zeitgeist in America, whether you do it or not. 12 years of virtual Republican control of the House and Senate is a massive. What we need is a massive shift to the left, from Enron to crony capitalism, the health care mess, the offshoring of jobs, the immigration problem, and the amnesty call, fiscal control, the lack of that in Iraq, particularly in Iraq. Unigovernment by conservative Republicans has yielded policy failure upon policy failure for average working Americans.
Exactly.
I think there's a call for radical liberalism.
Well, that's why 2008 is the Democrats' election year to win. Because of all of that you just said.
Look, this is nonsense.
Coming up with policies to address that doesn't automatically mean you're so far left.
I just looked at some polling that's showing the country is still, despite the fact they didn't vote for Republicans, is still about where they were ideologically before this election.
Rubbish. It's a new zeitgeist. Exit question. Is the 2008 race for the White House the Democrats to lose? Yes or no?
It is, John, but liberalism is not the answer. Economic nationalism and, frankly, anti-interventionism, these aren't necessarily left-wing. They are center issues today.
The Democrats are with you, Pat.
I know they are on 2 out of 3
Eleanor,
issues.
quickly.
Yeah. Well, yes, it's the Democratic year to lose, definitely.
No, look, obviously right now most people think the Democrats have a better chance, but there's a lot of play out before you can say it's theirs to lose.
What?
I think it's clearly the best shot with the Democratic Party.
The answer is it's the Democrats to lose. When we come back, who's scoring the more points? Scooter Libby's defense or Patrick Fitzgerald's prosecution?
Today, for the first time ever, 90% of seniors have comprehensive prescription drug coverage. Millions of older and disabled Americans with peace of mind, thanks to Medicare's new prescription benefit. That's why leading newspapers say rushing to change Medicare would be a mistake. USA Today tells Congress put on the brakes. The Journal warns it's the last thing patients need. The Post says change is the wrong prescription. Medicare's prescription drug benefit. It's working for seniors.
At CIT, we provide the financing to keep healthcare strong and healthy. We help energy companies find new resources. We work with communications companies to make the world smaller and life bigger. We offer financial aid to make college possible for more students. At CIT, we help finance the future, because that's the place to be. See it with CIT.
At Grant Thornton, what they do for their clients, their expertise, and their partner involvement has made them one of the largest accounting organizations in the world, with a network of member firms in 110 countries, proving that when people really love what they do, they seem to want to keep doing it.
Good evening, Grant Thornton.
Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting.
Issue 2, culpable paralysis in the Senate.
The United States Senate this week came to a standstill when Republican senators used esoteric parliamentary tactics to anesthetize debate on a resolution condemning the president's strategy to send 21,500 more troops to Iraq. Democrats were outraged.
We cannot get the Republicans to allow us to take a symbolic vote to condemn the escalation, much less a real vote to stop it.
Even Republicans were appalled at the appearance of Senate incompetence and skullduggery. Republican Senator Pat Roberts went as far as to say,
"We appear like lemmings splashing in a sea of public concern, frustration, and anger over the war in Iraq."
On Wednesday at midday, Republican Senator John Warner read a letter aloud on the Senate floor signed by 6 fellow Republican senators.
We will explore all of our options under the Senate procedures and practices to ensure a full and open debate on the Senate floor.
Question, let's start here. Will a congressional debate over the war be bad for troop morale? That question was put to General Peter Pace to answer in his testimony before Congress this week.
There's no doubt in my mind that the dialogue here in Washington strengthens our democracy, period.
Can we now put to rest the falsehood that troop morale is hurt by debate in the U.S. Congress over the wisdom and management of the Iraq war?
No.
I ask you.
No, look, he didn't even deny it. He simply said debate is good for democracy, which we all agree. He didn't address the question, but Senator McCain did, and he did so brilliantly on the floor, where he said it's undeniable that when you're condemning the mission that you're sending the troops on for, and the general who's going over there to do it, that there is going to reduce morale. He knows more about it certainly than me.
You clearly have not read Pace's testimony, because
he for
four paragraphs he made the same point again and again. With some nuance.
But John, look, look, there's no doubt about it. I think if the troops over there see the country here divided, which it is, and the Congress divided like it is, they got to say, is the country really behind us? But that's the way democracy works. Pace did say he doesn't think that troop morale is going to be hurt by this debate. But if they start cutting off funds, he said that would affect morale, but that does not necessarily
That's not debate. That's resources.
That does not.
He said if you maintain the resources
but even
and you
then,
welcome
John,
the troops and you show your affection
even
for the
then,
troops,
John,
they're okay.
It may be the right thing to do.
Exit question. Who won the week? The pro-war forces or the anti-war forces? The Hawks or the Doves? I ask you, Pat, quickly.
I think that, look, Reid and those guys won, but Reid and those guys are responsible for the fact that we didn't have a vote. Republicans would have given him 2 votes. They asked for 2 votes. He said, no, you're not going to get any.
Republicans always come out the winners in Pat's world. Look, the Republicans suffered a public relations embarrassment. So did the Democrats. It's worse for the Republicans. But look, blaming the anti-war people for undercutting the troops. What's undercutting the troops is the fact that there isn't a mission that is achievable, and the fact that this administration still doesn't have a plan, doesn't know what they're doing in Iraq. That's what's undercutting the morale. It was not a debate at home.
It was neither the Republicans nor the Democrats. They both did a poor job. The winners were, of course, the enemy.
Well, let's salute that.
Well, we've once again seen the impotence of our congressional system. I mean, I think it was a terrible week for our congressional system that we couldn't get an honest discussion on this thing. Both parties looked terrible.
Particularly in the wake of the 2006
accusing people who criticize the administration's execution of this war, accusing them of aiding and abetting the enemy is really the last refuge of scoundrels.
I didn't say aiding and abetting. You asked who was the winner this week, and it was the no, it wasn't. Don't put your liberal words into my conservative mouth, please.
You said aiding the enemy. You just left out and abetting.
I didn't say. I said the enemy won the week. That was the question.
John,
and they did.
Harry Reid. Look, the Republicans said, we will give you your vote on the Warner Amendment. We know that will hurt us, but give us a vote on the amendment of Judd Gregg. And Harry Reid said no, because that would show the division in the Democratic Party. Republicans did lose the week, but Reid is actually responsible.
Harry Reid was grinning like a Cheshire cat. You know why? Because he sees more Senate seats for the Democrats lining up now. If they beat up on Bush because of the Iraq War, he wins. If they go over the cliff with Bush, he wins.
But the Senate lost this week. Mort was right. The Congress looks pathetic.
Congress looks
Issue
really
3, Scooter Agonistes.
The prosecution at the CIA leak trial rested on Thursday. Louis Libby is charged with lying under oath about how he learned of the CIA identity of the wife of Joseph Wilson, a critic of the Bush administration Iraq war policy. The prosecution also contends that Mr. Libby lied to the grand jury.
Question. Is the ghost in the room at this trial Dick Cheney?
Hovering over everything is Dick Cheney, because the prosecution is clearly trying to show that the vice president was behind this, that Scooter Libby was acting at his request to besmirch an enemy of the administration. And this all occurred right around the time that the case for war was beginning to unravel. Remember the argument over the 17 words. We now know that the administration knew the 17 words about Iraq trying to procure nuclear weapons, uranium from Africa. They knew that was false. And that's what they're trying to cover up, and that's what Libby was trying to cover up.
But, you know, I think, John, that the winner of the week, though, was Fitzgerald, because, I mean, he's got not simply Tim Russert, but he's got 6 or 7 other people who are saying that Scooter Libby knew about and spoke about the who Valerie Plame, her role, before the column came out. And I think it's going to be a hellish case for the defense to make to undercut the credibility of all of those witnesses. So I think Fitzgerald won.
Russert's unequivocal denial of Libby meant that Libby's alibi fell, and he demolished the alibi, did he not?
Well, I think he clearly demolished that particular piece of the alibi, but the issue is not just an alibi. What Libby is basically saying, you know, I really didn't remember it all very well. You know, it was a long time ago that we were talking to lots of people, and that is the issue. Was he deliberately lying or not? I do think he did not have a good week, but his defense is now going to be put in place, and we'll see what happens.
Well, not remembering something is one thing, but remembering something that clearly didn't happen, I think, is a much higher hurdle for him to get over.
The prosecution has made a strong case in their round. I think this is a story that is more interest to those of us in Washington than it is to the general public, and therefore I don't think there is any ghost hanging over the nation on this matter.
At the present level of discussion, it may be more of a Washington story. But is it possible that Libby will implicate Cheney?
I think it's very unlikely. John, I can't imagine he would have anything to implicate him for. Because the underlying charge is only perjury.
Exactly.
And so if he can say something embarrassing about the vice president, he can't trade that for a sentence.
John, it's a Martha Stewart case. It's a Martha Stewart case. Scooter Libby is accused of lying about a crime he didn't commit, which was the deliberate outing of a CIA agent. Now, they're doing the Cheney stuff in order to put a motive for Libby having lied to protect the boss.
Who's the boss?
The boss is Cheney. But I don't think this isn't going to implicate
Well, he's already
Cheney.
said that Cheney.
This isn't going to implicate Cheney in any crime.
Cheney fingered Valerie Plame.
But the larger story.
But Cheney never denied that.
The larger story is a falsification of evidence around going
but that's
to war.
what Congress ought to investigate.
This gives them good
that has nothing to do
ammunition
with
to
this
go
trial.
ahead.
That has
It has everything to do with this trial.
This is a trial for perjury. It has nothing to do with intelligence information. You guys are trying to make it sound like the trial's about that, but the trial is about perjury and obstruction of justice and nothing else. And so therefore it's a small issue that makes a personal tragedy for Libby. If he goes to prison, it's a tragedy for him.
It's a small issue that shines a light on the lies that the administration concocted in order to take the country to an unnecessary war.
If Libby is facing conviction, that focuses the mind, and he has the option perhaps of cutting a deal with Fitzgerald. Do you think he'd rat out Cheney?
I don't think it affects, as you say, the perjury charge. There's no way, in my judgment, that at this stage of the game he can opt out of this trial by talking.
The only way he can rat out Cheney is to admit he's been lying his head off now.
Right.
What is Fitzgerald's quarry? Do you think his quarry is Libby?
Yes, I think absolutely his quarry is
You don't
Libby.
think he's more ambitious than that?
Whatever his ambitions may be, the man in the dock is called Libby.
He didn't indict anybody else. He didn't even.
No, he did not.
He didn't even indicate an unindicted co-conspirator.
Right. No.
Yes, Libby is the final quarry for him.
John,
Do you think if he's facing condition, he will be a G. Gordon Liddy?
Oh, look,
or will he crumble?
Look, he's not going to betray. To betray Cheney, he would have to admit he's been lying everything up to date. He wouldn't be a credible witness against Cheney.
We'll be right back with predictions.
The McLaughlin Group is brought to you in part by Grant Thornton, dedicated to serving clients worldwide with a singular passion for the business of accounting. And by SAP, software for great companies, not just great big companies. Learn more at sap.com/midsize.
We can afford SAP software on a mid-sized company budget. This better not be another prank by the guys in procurement.
So thousands of other mid-sized companies run SAP software. Does that mean I'm not the maverick nonconformist I thought I was?
The world's demand for energy will never stop, which is why a farmer is growing corn, and a farmer is growing soy, and why ADM is turning these crops into biofuels. The world's demand for energy will never stop, which is why ADM will never stop. We're only getting started. ADM, resourceful by nature.
At CIT, we provide the financing to keep healthcare strong and healthy. We help energy companies find new resources. We work with communications companies to make the world smaller and life bigger. We offer financial aid to make college possible for more students. At CIT, we help finance the future, because that's the place to be. See it with CIT.
Don't forget, you can iPod the group. Out of time. Bye-bye.